Hey guys, welcome back, and today we have another week of box office, so let's get into it. Up first, we have & Juliet, which went from 99.90 to 99.17, and 1,037,776 to 1,007,428. Had a bit of a tough year last year, but it seemed to have gotten that momentum back, though I do wonder when Charli D'Amelio leaves, which I think is sometime this year, will that affect box office? And has she affected box office? Because I genuinely don't know. But I do know is that when she started going in, the numbers went up. So we'll see. Boop is not doing good, guys. This is, I think, its third week in previews, and it had 7 performances this week. And while capacity-wise, it's very good at 91%, its overall gross was $543K, and an average ticket of $74. You know, they're clearly doing a ticket strategy where you have lower tickets during previews. So it seems like they're intentionally doing this, and then you jack them up because you get audiences and seats. I personally don't believe in this method. It's been tried with Kimberly Akimbo, with Shucked, and they both closed. But, you know, it's a strategy. It can work sometimes. However, with Boop, this is a very well-known character. I know it's not Mickey Mouse level, but like it isn't like this is an original musical, and it's performing like an original musical. You know, they're doing a lot of comps. You know, you look at advanced sales, it's not doing so hot. And I think they're keeping it low. I think they would like to make it go higher, but the interest is not there. So they have to keep it at $74. Because I just can't imagine that these people, the investors of Boop, which probably cost around $800K to $900K, maybe even $1 million to put on every single week, are thinking, yeah, we want to do $500,000 for like 3 weeks. I don't see that any person would sign off on that. So clearly, Boop is not in the direction it's supposed to be headed into, and audiences don't like it. And I don't know how well it's going to do with critics or nominations. So, you know, it can't sustain these numbers. Again, it's very variable by show. You know, if it's a smaller production like Akimbo, this is fine. Well, it's never fine, but it's acceptable. You can work with it. This is needing to get higher ASAP, you know? And listen, once it gets to its official opening, and if these numbers continue, like it's in the 5s, the 6s, the 7s, that's not going to be good enough. So I'm very curious to see how this does, but it's not looking good now. Vista Social Club continues to do amazing. Last week, 99%. This week, 97%. And 891K last week to this week's 970K. Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club last week 98% and 1,327,072. This week 99% and 1,521,936. One of its best performing weeks in a long time. And this was Adam Lambert's final week. And it was the beginning of Eva Noblezada and Orville Peck's start. Now, I thought Orville Peck was bigger than he actually was. I guess, you know, because I looked on just Instagram, it's like 700K. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually pull in better numbers than the Moana person and Adam, because it wasn't failing. It was still making $1 million, you know, so it wasn't in danger of closing, but it wasn't doing the kind of numbers that it was doing with Eddie, you know, and so I do question how long can they keep this going, because, you know, once it falls under $1 million, just for a few weeks, that can be enough to close this show ASAP. Because as you know, Eva Noblezada and Jeremy Jordan are kind of names in a way. They kind of have become names, as you can see with The Great Gatsby. Now they were attached to a popular piece of IP, so you don't want to overestimate their star power, but Eva and Jeremy are star power, but solo. It'll be very interesting to see how they do. I think Jeremy is more popular than Eva Noblezada, but we will see. It's going to be very interesting. It's too early to tell, so it'll be very interesting to see if it does either the same kind of numbers, or does better, or does worse. I think it will kind of do the same kind of numbers, but again, we will see. For Death Becomes Her, another fantastic week, 96% last week, and 1,224,382. This week, 94%, and 1,208,719. Floyd Collins with Jeremy Jordan had 3 performances, selling out and 350K, average ticket 110. Again, you can't do a lot with 3 performances. I would have maybe liked to see a 4 or 5, but the average ticket price would have to have been like 130, 140. So it'll be very interesting to see, how much box office Jeremy brings in on his own. He hasn't been solo in a show in a long time, and Floyd Collins is not Great Gatsby level known. However, it is a limited engagement, so even if it doesn't do well, he has an out. He can say, hey, it was a limited engagement. I couldn't control it. But it seems like there's a lot of buzz around Floyd Collins, and again, very interested to see how it does in the next couple of weeks. But I do think for Jeremy, this is going to be a bit of a test of how big is your name in this business? How big is it? I think personally it is pretty big, but I could be proven wrong. I could be said this isn't going to work, But listen, since Jeremy's been a huge name, so I think he will do well. I don't know if this will do like 1 million, but I think this could settle around a solid 700K, 800K, maybe 600K in the next couple of weeks for previews. Gypsy, capacity-wise, has fallen off, 89% last week and 85% this week, but the grosses remain just as strong. Last week, 1,394,036, and this week, 1,386,477. Hadestown is selling out and doing phenomenal. Last week, 933K. This week, 934K. And it has no stunt casting in it at the current moment, which is amazing. Very happy if you're a Hadestown fan. Again, they had that really tough time in 2023. But they managed to make a comeback, and they're sustaining it. And I'm glad, because, stunt casting, you run out of it. It's not a sustainable model. But Hadestown is kind of proving, like the song, showed the way the world, showed the way things can be by having their box office succeed without stunt casting. So that's makes me very happy. Hamilton made $2 million, sold out. Hell's Kitchen, 88% last week, and 1,113,907 to this week's 87% and 1,141,243. It's doing fantastic. It's just doing way softer numbers than it was when it first opened. Maybe Happy Ending. This was the first week. I can't speak today. This was the first week with Darren not in it. And it held up pretty well. I mean, yes, it had a 98K drop. It had its most significant drop of this year. And we were expecting this, right? Because Darren is a name. But, compared to something like Sunset or Gypsy, where it went from like 1,500,000 to 800K, maybe Happy Ending, capacity-wise, last week did 98%, and this week, 96%. And it went from 847K last week to 748K. Yes, a significant drop, But again, it proved that Darren is a significant bump, but he's not the bump. It still had a good week this week. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Yes, it wasn't ideal, but again, I said without Darren and Criss, this show would be doing 6s and 7s and the occasional 8, where Darren makes it go from an 8 and 9 and the occasional 7. So yes, Darren is a name, but this gives me validation in the fact that, one, my point about Darren and Criss not being that huge box office Audra McDonald-sized draw was confirmed, and 2, maybe Happy Ending can succeed without Darren and Criss. It just needs to win Best Musical, as does Dead Outlaw, which is not selling super great. So that's big competition. And then we got Mulan Rouge, which went from 95% to 95.60, and 1,070,743 to this week's 1,190,352. And of course, Boy George is coming back, so that's why the box office went up. Very interesting story. I am blocked. Mulan Rouge has blocked me on their Instagram account. I don't know why that happened. I mean, I have trashed their show, but not in a review. But if anyone knows why, let me know. Mince, guys, is doing hot. It's sold out every single week. Actually, it fell to 99% this week. But it went from 716K to 843K and an average ticket of $134. I mean, this show did better than maybe Happy Ending. This week and last week, actually. Almost last week. But I can see why they extended. And listen, I'm not a huge fan of Operation Mincemeat. It's not my favorite thing. But an original musical thriving and surviving is amazing. And the fact that they started off with a limited engagement and now they've extended, it was a great strategy. I think it made people buy tickets as soon as they could, knowing, oh my God, this is only going to be here until the summer. Oh my God, it's only going to be here until the winter. Oh my God, it's only going to be here until this time next year. And I was very concerned that maybe the strategy of going to a full year would not pay off, but it clearly is. However, I do think that, it winning Best Musical would help it a lot. And I think it could fall off significantly in the fall. But again, it's not a super expensive production, so even if it falls to like $600K, $500K, maybe even $400K, it'll be fine, because at that point, they'll just say, we're not going to extend anymore. I mean, I don't see it getting to $1 million, but I would love it to. And then we got Redwood, which performed to 92% last week and 893K, to this week's 89% and 856K. Again, I think it will close in August when Adina leaves, because you really have to think, would it be doing these numbers if Adina wasn't in it? I don't think so. Smash went from 95% to 87%, but the overall gross went from 860K to 965K. It's doing amazing. I don't like the show at all, and I think it is very front-loaded, but it is doing better than Boop. However, New York made $1 million, and it went down the tubes. So I think the reviews for Boop and the nominations and wins for Boop and Smash are pivotal to their successes, because I think, in my opinion, both are going to get nominated for stuff, but none of them are going to get nominated for any big awards or win any, and I don't think they're going to get the best reviews. Maybe Smash will get slightly positives, but I think you will see a drop-off. Well, Boop, I think, might have a drop-off very soon, but I think Smash will have a drop-off post-summer, and I still think it might close in January. But again, it's doing objectively fantastic. It's financially a hit right now. There's nothing to get concerned about yet. Also, I'm not covering like Six and Hamilton as in depth, but they're both doing super well. There's just so many new shows that I want to focus on those. Stephen Sondheim's Old Friends outdid Boop. 99% capacity, 7 performances, average ticket 142, and 637K for what's essentially a very glamorized concert. So, Stranger Things The First Shadow had 2 performances, sold out, and 433K, average ticket $136. Again, can't do a lot with 2 performances, but that average ticket was pretty high. I would have liked to have seen a 5 and 6 in front of it, but it's a Stranger Things. It's going to do very well financially, especially with Season 5 coming out next year. Or this year, rather. I don't know if it's going to be here for 10 years, but it's going to be here for a significant time, and the Marquee Theater curse is officially broken. Because it's never been officially broken, because yes, you had Elf, you had the Jonas Brothers, but you haven't had a long-running hit succeed in this theater in years. Sunset went from 82% to 82%, and 1,084,916 to 1,097,900. The Great Gatsby went from 99% to 98%, and 1,240,101 to 1,214,361. The last 5 years is, despite my hatred for the production, not the material, but the production, is doing amazing. Last week, sold out. This week, 99%. For 7 performances, an average ticket of $125, which is actually pretty reasonable, and 731K to 841K, a 100K plus increase. It's a limited engagement, even if it was doing like horrible, doesn't matter. But this must be very, thank you, theater gods, theater people. That's what Nick Jonas is saying. His ego could have gotten hurt, because his performance is not getting good reviews, and I don't think it's going to get good critic responses. But it's for a very small financial show. It's doing amazing. I don't think it's going to get to like 1,100,000 for like consistently, maybe at the end. But if it maintains 8s and 7s, it's doing well. And Nick Jonas redeemed himself as the box office draw, despite not giving off a good performance. As How to Succeed in Business decades ago, when he was in that, did terribly and closed with him in it. And it might give producers the unfortunate thought that we can get not untalented because he's talented, but people that are just not fit for specific parts in these parts, and the public will pay to see them. But if it does fall off, it could be a very bad thing for Nick Jonas. And I guess that's the current theme of this video. You know, Jeremy Jordan, Orville Peck, even Noblezada, Nick Jonas, because Boy George has, proven himself already. These three names that are kind of being tested on how well do their names sell. And there's a lot at stake for them, so I'm very interested to see what happens there. And then finally, we have The Outsiders, which sold out and played to 1,428,808 to this week's 1,459,996. So that's the video for this week. Like, sub, and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.